Hi, hello everybody, I'm Justin, this is Koopa. Welcome to Koopa's Corner. And today we're going to talk about the Royal Rumble match. It's WWE's premium live event, the Royal Rumble, this upcoming Saturday. And that is going to be January the 31st. It's going to be out of Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, which is going to give it a special start time of 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it is going to be airing exclusively on the upgraded ESPN subscription. There are 4 advertised matchups for this card, including 2 Royal Rumble matches. The Royal Rumble is my absolute favorite event of the year. Absolute favorite. For those that are unfamiliar, the Royal Rumble match itself is a pretty fun match. There are 30 superstars. They enter numbers 1 and number 2. Every 90 seconds, another one comes out until all 30 have entered. They are eliminated by being thrown over the top rope with both feet hitting the floor, and that's very important. The winner gets a championship opportunity in the main event of WrestleMania. So the stakes are clear, the stakes are high, the stakes are simple, the rules are simple, and it's just a very easy match to introduce people to wrestling with because of that. So it's definitely something that I always like to recommend to people who are just trying to get into it, particularly because it can be a lot of fun. The near eliminations and the saves can be a ton of fun. Plus, having 30 superstars, you're not just the most serious contenders for your title and having the most serious stories being told right now. You can breathe a little, you can have some fun with it. And then, you get near the end and you kind of have those people get eliminated and it's just your few serious contenders near the end, right? So that's the premise to the Royal Rumble match. And that's why it's so much fun, and that's why it's one of my favorites. And like I said, a great way to introduce people to the WWE, people who aren't necessarily fans of it. So we're going to talk about all 4 matchups, including both Rumble matches, that are being advertised for this Saturday. First up, I want to talk about AJ Styles versus Gunther. Right, so Gunther retired Bill Goldberg a while back. Then this past December, he retired John Cena. And afterwards, he came out, he started running his mouth about John Cena. I made him tap like a little bitch. Right? He kept repeating it, and he was just being really disrespectful. And AJ Styles stood up to him for the way he was being disrespectful. They had a match on Monday Night Raw. Gunther tapped out, but he did so kind of hiding around the corner where the referee couldn't see it. And AJ Styles thought he won, but the ref never saw it, so Gunther ended up winning that match. AJ Styles wanted a rematch, and Gunther would only give him one if he would put his career on the line. Now, instinctually, you want to say, oh, that's not it for AJ Styles. Like, clearly he's going to win this. But there's a lot to suggest this could actually be AJ Styles' final match, right? AJ Styles has very publicly stated that he does not want to wrestle beyond 2026. He thinks this will be the final year of his career. It's been a nice, long career. He's had accolades all around the world, every promotion that he's competed in. He's one of the biggest stars and one of the best in-ring performers to ever do it. And he wants to go out while he's still performing at a high level. He doesn't want to decline and have people remember that version of AJ Styles, right? Now, you think, okay, he's going to have a year-long sort of run the way John Cena did, not go out in January, but it would be poetic because AJ Styles, despite having already a long career and already having tons of accolades around the world, didn't make his WWE debut until 2016, and he did so at the Royal Rumble. So while the specific date might not line up, it would essentially be the 10-year anniversary of him in the WWE. So there would be a kind of a nice bookend, almost a poetic bookend there for him to actually retire. And if he was going to retire, I mean, it's going to be against Gunther at this point, right? They're making the career killer sort of Gunther's new sort of gimmick, his sort of new character, right? I don't think all of his storylines are going to be defined by it, but if there is somebody who's ready to step out, it seems like for the foreseeable future, it will be Gunther who puts them out, right? Which is why it's very realistic and very plausible that AJ Styles loses here, right? It could go either way, right? It wouldn't be shocking if AJ won and if AJ stuck around for a little while longer. But the downside to that is you really risk damaging Gunther's aura, sort of Gunther's credibility, especially coming off of retiring John Cena, right? That sort of momentum sort of needs to be followed up with in a meaningful way. And that's the reason why I think Gunther's going to win here. I think Gunther is going to retire AJ Styles at the Royal Rumble. Now, the next match that we have on the card is Drew McIntyre defending his undisputed WWE Championship against Sami Zayn. Now, Drew McIntyre only recently won the championship against Cody Rhodes. He took it from Cody Rhodes in 3 stages of hell, and thanks to Jacob Fatu's interference. Now, his first defense is not against Jacob Fatu. It's not a rematch against Cody Rhodes. It's against Sami Zayn, who won a fatal 4-way at Saturday night's main event against Randy Orton, Damian Priest, and Trick Williams. Right? Sami Zayn winning was probably the right call amongst all 4 competitors. Saturday night's main event was in Montreal, which is Sami Zayn's hometown, and the Royal Rumble is in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And because Sami Zayn has Arabic descent, he's treated very well over there. He's very popular over there. So he's a much bigger star there than sometimes he is over here. And so they're utilizing that to their advantage by putting him in a championship match, particularly if he's not planned to win the Rumble match. Then it might make more sense to put him in a championship opportunity than in the Rumble match itself, right? Or you risk sort of a 2014 Daniel Bryan situation going on, right? You risk the crowd sort of turning on the people you want them to cheer for, the Batistas, if you will, in favor of the Sami Zayns or the Daniel Bryans, right? So that being said, it would be shocking if Sami Zayn won it when Drew held it for such a short period of time. It feels like there's a lot more going on. Drew potentially needing to feud, at least with Jacob Fatu, after Sami Zayn. That being said, there is a scenario where I could picture Sami Zayn winning. And I'll talk about that scenario a little bit later when we talk about the men's Rumble match, because I think if there's a particular superstar who returns, then they could win. Then they could set up a championship match, and I think Sami Zayn would be the best opponent for them. But we'll talk about that again in just a little bit here. I think that even though that scenario is plausible, could happen, I don't think it's likely, right? I think it's likely Drew retains his championship here. He just hasn't held the belt long enough, and you don't want to take it from Cody and give it to another babyface like Sami Zayn, where you're sort of treading the same water, right? Drew McIntyre is one of the best performers in the company. He deserves this. He deserves more time with this. And I think there are stories to be told with Drew McIntyre. So I think Drew McIntyre is going to retain. Right? Now let's talk about the women's Royal Rumble match. Now so far there are 17 women officially in the Royal Rumble match as of Monday Night Raw, at the end of Monday Night Raw, at least according to WWE's website, right before I started recording this. right? So obviously Rhea Ripley, Io Sky, Liv Morgan, Roxanne Perez, Raquel Rodriguez, right? They've all been sort of intertwined. We saw Becky Lynch, Asuka, and Kairi Sane sort of have a little interaction on Monday Night Raw. And actually, I don't believe Kairi Sane is listed as an official competitor, so she might not be in the Rumble. But we know Asuka is, and we know Becky Lynch is, right? Bayley is, Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair, Julia, Nia Jax and Lash Legend, Maxine Dupree, Chelsea Green, Lyra Valkyria, and Jordan Grace are the official names. 17, 18 if Kairi Sane is added, but Kairi Sane wasn't on the list, right? Even though I thought she had officially declared at some point. Anyway, that leaves 13 spots. Some of those will obviously go to women who are on the roster regularly and just haven't declared, right? Maybe not big enough stars to have had a moment to declare. Maybe a Zelina Vega, something like that, right? But let's just assume all 13 are going to be potential surprises. There are a lot of different ways they could go with this, right? I sort of have three categories of women that could fill up those slots, right? You sort of have your NXT exports. You have your returns from injury, stuff like that, but these are sort of regular main roster people who've just been gone, and your legends, right? And so these are kind of the three categories I want to touch on. For NXT, right, I'm not the biggest NXT guy. I don't watch it regularly. But there are some names that you hear, and that would kind of make sense, right? Sol Ruka is an obvious choice, having competed in Saturday Night's main event. Not the one last week, but the one that John Cena retired, right? She was chosen for a match against Bayley, right? She's had some exposure. She's had tag team championship opportunities on the main roster. So she's had some exposure to the main roster, and this would be another way to give her more exposure, probably for a call-up at some point on the sooner rather than later side, right? You could also have a Blake Monroe, who was a pretty big deal when she signed from AEW. JC Jane is the champion, so she'd be somebody who makes a lot of sense, right? It always makes sense to kind of put your champion out there. And someone else, Lola Vice, is pretty big name, pretty popular, and she has been competing with AAA and with some of that stuff as well. So she brings a little exposure to that world as well. And you figure there might be some representation of that going on. But those are just a couple options. It's not limited to those. Really, any woman on the NXT roster could fill this sort of spot. It might be multiple women on the roster. I feel like this category for the women is probably going to be a lot bigger than for the men. Right? I think particularly being in Saudi Arabia, there's going to be a want or a need for sort of legends, and that is more likely to manifest in the men's match than the women's match, right? I think potentially as far as legends go, obviously a Trish Stratus or a Lita, great options. A Brie Bella. Brie Bella could compete, particularly with Nikki Bella being on the main roster. Nikki's not officially declared for this, by the way, either. But if Nikki takes one of the slots, Brie could be a surprise entrant and either team with her or oppose her. In either way, it would work, right? So Brie Bella, I don't think we should rule that out. And another name that, has a little bit of traction would be the return of Paige. Paige finished up her AEW contract a short while ago, and she'd be another great surprise entrance here, right? Especially if she had like a nice face-to-face with a number of the superstars that have made their debut since she left. And she could come back and sort of do an AJ Lee type thing where she's wrestling part-time, right? She doesn't have to be a full-on member of the roster. But yeah, Paige is definitely a good option. I think as far as, like I mentioned, AJ Lee is another example that could be a great surprise entrant, right? She's not injured as far as I know, but she's sort of that part-time wrestler where she's not usually around, and then she could come back, and it would I think hopefully she will be. Hopefully she'll be in this. I don't think it would be the most shocking thing, but I think technically she would be a surprise entrance, right? Because she's not announced and she's not really around doing other stuff. I think to that regard, two other names I want to talk about. Both main roster superstars, both out with injuries. This could be a great time to have them return. Tiffany Stratton and Bianca Belair. There's something to be said about either one of them winning the match, right? They both sort of have a story with Jade Cargill that they could start to tell, right? They both have enough history there that they could really tell a great story. And if they don't win, I think that they're both at least a shoo-in to return. Tiffany Stratton's all over the promotional material for WrestleMania anyway, so even if she doesn't win, I expect her to start a feud with somebody in this match. Right? Jordynne Grace officially entered, sort of teasing a feud with Jade Cargill at this time. Charlotte and Alexa could finally split up. There's a number of stories that could manifest themselves in here. Right, and so now that we talked about potential surprises, there are a couple things I want to mention as well. I want to talk about the Iron Woman, who lasts the longest. This is kind of a thing every year. I am going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say Chelsea Green. Right? Not the most serious competitor, or to be taken serious competitor, right? She's a little bit low on the card, and it's easy to throw someone like her out quick for a quick laugh. But Michael Hayes made some comments about her on the most recent season of Unreal. And since then, she has sort of come out with a chip on her shoulder. Like she's out to prove him wrong. And I hope she does. And I think the Rumble would be a great way to throw her in early and have her last a long time. Right? I think let's talk about most eliminations, right? Most eliminations, again, this could go a number of ways. You've got Jordynne Grace, who is just built, right? You could have a returning Bianca Belair, who's filled that role in the past. Bianca is somebody else who's known for her strength. Obviously, a Nia Jax or a Lash Legend, maybe, sure, they're both big girls. And then, obviously, Rhea Ripley, if she's not going to win, and right now, it doesn't feel like she will, right? She's probably the most over superstar in the match, right? She's the biggest star in the match. So you have her start racking up the eliminations, right? I think that is a perfect role for her. She comes out of this looking super strong, super good, even if she doesn't actually win. I actually think Rhea might be final two, might be the last one thrown out by our eventual winner, which my prediction is Liv Morgan. Now, I think that Liv Morgan's not an unrealistic pick. I think that there's a lot of... it's not a shocking pick, I guess, as opposed to unrealistic. But it wouldn't be too shocking, right? I think there's a lot of people who think she could win. I think there's a lot of people who almost expect her to win. While a matchup with Stephanie Vaquer would be fresh, and they've teased it a little bit, and they've sort of put Raquel into a storyline with Stephanie, so Stephanie could go through Raquel, then go through Roxanne, and then get to Liv at WrestleMania. They could do it that way. That's an option. I think maybe, just maybe, Liv wins. Then next week, or maybe even a little bit after, one of the times that Stephanie Vaquer is defending her championship against Raquel gets the surprise win. And you set up Liv versus Raquel, or Liv versus Raquel versus Roxanne Perez in a triple threat match, right? And that's something that I haven't seen a lot of people talk about. But if the Judgment Day is going to be split up finally, why not? And this would be a great way to facilitate that. And you'd have a huge triple threat match with a ton of story sort of behind it, right? So I think Liv Morgan wins. Possibly to go against Stephanie Vaquer, possibly to go against Raquel Rodriguez and or Roxanne Perez in a triple threat match. Right? So those are my predictions for the Women's Royal Rumble match, but let's talk about the Men's Royal Rumble match. Now, For the men's match, there are 13 names officially entered, and that is Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, Gunther, Rey Mysterio, Jey Uso, Dragon Lee, Penta, Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, Logan Paul, Austin Theory, Javon Evans, and Oba Femi. That leaves 17 spots open for potential surprises. Now, this one feels a lot less likely that there will be a lot of surprises, right? There are a ton of names not declared that could be. Sami Zayn could be entered in, particularly if he loses the championship match, right? If he loses and then he comes out and wins and continues this sort of Daniel Bryan-esque underdog story, that would be huge. He might be the superstar that gets the biggest pop of all of them winning in Saudi Arabia, right? So I don't want to rule Sami Zayn out as a potential entrant. It's going to depend how that championship match goes. You also are missing Jacob Fatu, and I think that the fact that he's kind of got beef with Drew and with Cody, he feels like a shoo-in. You're missing Randy Orton, Trick Williams, Damian Priest, all of which were just in a number one contenders match. So they're good enough to fight to be the number one contender, but not good enough to fight in the Rumble to be the number one contender. Doesn't make sense. They'll probably be in the match, right? I don't know that I would count these necessarily as surprise entrants, just people that haven't declared that could be in the match. I think, unfortunately, as much as I hate to say it, Brock Lesnar also is a name that could be here like this. And he might come out and, help Paul Heyman and help the Vision. It's possible. I don't know. But anyway, 17 spots undeclared. Yes, there are options here that would be superstars that already belong to the main roster. Wouldn't be surprise entrances that could fill some of those spots. But let's talk about some of our potential surprise entrants, right? Again, you could have your NXT slots here. Joe Hendry, he was a surprise entrant last year. He's super over still. You could also go AAA, Mr. Iguana or Vikingo, something like that. Again, it could be a variety of superstars that fill those spots, but I wouldn't be surprised if 2 or 3 of those spots belonged to NXT and or AAA. You also have an interesting category here that a little different from the women in my mind anyway, right? And that is sort of the non-wrestler. Pat McAfee could be a surprise entrant, right? He hasn't been around for a while. Jelly Roll had a big match. Was it SummerSlam? Right? He's a big celebrity. To that extent, he's not the only celebrity that's wrestled recently for the WWE. So any number of them could really slot in as well if you wanted to. It wouldn't be the first time we've had celebrities in the Royal Rumble. Or I had a thought after Monday Night Raw where Adam Pearce could be a name, right? There was all this heated tension with the Vision, and then all of a sudden he just backed off. He put them all in the Rumble. He reinstated Braun Breaker from his suspension. And he did so a little too easily. He didn't threaten the Vision like, okay, I apologize, I'm going to reinstate you, I'm going to put you in the Rumble, but if you step out of line again, you're suspended again. No, nothing like that, nothing, right? So, okay, maybe he becomes an entrant into the Rumble. And maybe he tries to throw out Braun Breaker. I don't think it's likely. I really don't. Unless they're trying to write Adam Pearce off. They don't want him to be the GM anymore. I don't know. But I don't think it's likely. Not likely. I think another sort of the same as the women, you had a category of potentially injured superstars who could be returning. Seth Rollins has been out. It might be too soon for him to return. I don't think he's very likely. Chad Gable's been out. I think he feels a lot more likely. I think he feels like somebody who could be. And he could have a little face-to-face with El Grande Americano, who's also not officially declared, by the way. And another name, and this is sort of, I alluded to this earlier, Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens has been out for some time with an injury. He could be out for good. We might never get Kevin Owens back. But Kevin Owens, we might get back. And if we get him back, there's a number of stories that could be told with him to WrestleMania. When he left, he was sort of beefing with Cody. He was sort of beefing with Randy. He could continue that. Or he could win. And he could go on to WrestleMania to face the new WWE champion, Sami Zayn. And we could get a classic rivalry reignited for the road to WrestleMania, right? For the world title. So if Kevin Owens returns, I don't want to rule that out. If Sami Zayn wins, then I think that this likelihood skyrockets, right? So it's just a possibility, right? And then, of course, being Saudi Arabia, legends. I think we're a lot more likely to see legends here because it's in Saudi Arabia, right? And obviously Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy, both being in TNA, having done some work with NXT, they're probably on the table, right? I don't know with Jeff Hardy's criminal history how strict Saudi Arabia is with that kind of stuff. Maybe, maybe not, right? But it's an option. Kane is an option because Kane is sort of synonymous with the Royal Rumble. Again, don't know if it's likely, but it would pop the crowd. He's an Attitude Era superstar, and he could tack on, his 19th Rumble, his 20th Rumble, whatever he's at. He's got the record for the most Royal Rumbles of all time. So he just makes sense. He feels right as a surprise entrant in the Royal Rumble. I don't know if this is super likely, but some big names, Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock, again, throwing those big Saudi Arabia paychecks at him, maybe. It's a possibility. Don't want to rule it out, right? I'm just throwing it out as an option for a surprise entrant. Again, maybe not the most likely thing, but it's on the table, right? And then I think there is a name that a lot of people are expecting to return, and that's Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho, rumor has it, finished up his AEW contract recently, and it times out perfectly for a return to the Royal Rumble. So there's a lot of really fun stuff that could happen here, guys. Now let's talk about the Iron Man of the match. Honestly, I'm going to go Logan Paul. I think it's a little bit out of left field, but obviously the Vision are going to sort of be spread out a little bit. And I don't think we're going to get Braun Breaker until a little bit later in the match. I think Logan Paul might be the first one out, and he sticks it out kind of through the end, right? I think most eliminations, Bronson Reed. Right, again, sticking with the Vision here, dominating the entire Royal Rumble. And Braun Breaker, I've got him winning the whole damn thing, right? Now, funnily enough, I didn't think that. I might not have said that a week ago, right? I definitely wouldn't have said it a month ago. It just feels the way Monday Night Raw played out. It's like, oh no, the Vision is going in to wreck this thing. I mean, this is going to be, I think, one of the more one-sided Rumbles that we've ever seen, and I think it's unfortunate, right? I think that realistically, I would have predicted Gunther. I think I was thinking Gunther for a long time until he sort of got into this side feud with AJ Styles. So, okay, maybe he's busy doing other stuff. Maybe he's a little preoccupied, right? I think having Gunther win, go up against Cody, sort of make up for Crown Jewel, sort of take the title off of Cody, that would have made a lot of sense. That would have been a lot of fun. They've moved away from that. I don't know that Gunther wins this, right? I think Gunther might get eliminated, and he might get eliminated by a legend, somebody that he potentially turns around, comes back in, and eliminates himself, setting up a feud for WrestleMania, particularly if that legend is somebody who is, going to retire come WrestleMania, right? Give him another name for the career killer gimmick thing that's going on, right? I even would have said Sami Zayn. as kind of a dark horse, but as an option. The moment they announced it was in Saudi Arabia, my first thought was Sami Zayn. I still think Sami Zayn is on the table. I still think Sami Zayn is a possibility, particularly if you get Seth Rollins returning or CM Punk interfering, right? They could set up a title match with Braun Breaker at Elimination Chamber instead. It's not off the table, right? This isn't a lock, but it feels like the most likely thing. Logan Paul's in early. Austin Theory's in decently early. They're sort of just hanging around doing their thing. Bronson Reed comes in, in the early 20s. Clears house. Braun Breaker comes in right near the end, 27, something like that. Doesn't have to do a lot of heavy lifting, and just kind of the four of them go to the end. It feels likely. So those are my predictions for the Royal Rumble this upcoming weekend. Guys, let me know in the comments, who do you think is going to win the Rumble match? Men and women, please. Let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.